Welcome to What Do You Say, the podcast that peels back the layers of remarkable individuals to reveal their extraordinary sides and their incredible lives. I'm your host, Frank Termini, and I'm absolutely thrilled to embark on this journey with you. The podcast name's What Do You Say, but that's not how it's said.
How do you say it?
We say.
What do you say?
We say.
What do you say?
We say.
What do you say?
You got it. We say.
Hey.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to What Do You Say? My name's Andrew Termini. As with us, as always, my brother Frank Termini, your host. If you like what we're doing here, please go online, like, subscribe, leave us a review.
Turn on notifications.
I always forget notifications.
I remember it.
But you definitely should be notified every time we drop new content. So
For sure. We have a awesome guest today. I've been really excited to have you on. I know you're super busy. We have Russ Tuttle, who is at the forefront of the human trafficking crisis really throughout the whole country.
Yeah,
right?
for the record, we're against it.
Right.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah. We are fighting against the human trafficking crisis, and now are you, because in the questionnaire, you indicated that the goal was to expand outside of Missouri. So you're mostly focused on Missouri.
So our initial focus since we started this effort is primarily Kansas and Missouri.
Kansas and
focusing
Missouri.
on the Midwest.
The metro area.
Yeah.
Okay, so and this whole thing starts with you living in India.
Yeah.
So what made you move to India?
So I was 4.
Okay, so you went with your family.
Yeah. So I didn't really have a choice. When you're 4, you go where mom and dad go.
Right.
Yeah. So what happened though was growing up in India in that culture, human trafficking was a thing before it was a term.
Right.
Right.
I mean, really, what's the difference between human trafficking and prostitution? I mean,
yeah, well, and so on a global scale, you just take human trafficking. There's 27 major categories of human trafficking. So we're talking forced labor, we're talking child soldiers, we're talking organ harvesting, right? So there's 27 major categories according to the United Nations of actual human trafficking on a global scale, generates between $150 to $200 billion a year. One of those categories is sex trafficking. One of the categories is what we call domestic minor sex trafficking, which is right here in America. We're talking about American kids protected by American law. So growing up in India, I saw labor trafficking. We saw the child labor. We saw the sweatshops where kids are forced to make carpets so we can buy the product cheap in the Western world. We saw all that, but always underlining all that was almost always levels of sexual exploitation. So it's just kind of something I just kind of knew growing up. So because I lived in India off and on until I came home for college. And so this was always kind of in the back of my mind. So I've always had this heart to help people who can't help themselves, right?
So when did you realize that the sex trafficking was not only an issue in India, but it was also an issue in the United States as well?
So for me, my epiphany came in 2009 when I was at a conference and I heard a guy just kind of talk about this issue. And for me, I was probably like most Americans are, especially adults. We have this conceptualized idea that, this horrible thing happens in exotic countries over there like India or Thailand or Cambodia. And so, if we felt led to, we'll write a $25 check to some organization. We've done our part, right? So we've got that.
Check the box.
Check the box.
Right.
Or we have this conceptualized idea that, it's a problem on the southern border of kids coming across the border specifically for the purposes of sex trafficking, women coming across the border for sex trafficking. And we kind of feel bad about that, but it's kind of distant, doesn't really impact us that much. So most Americans, exotic countries over there, southern border, but very few stop to go, you know what, this could actually impact my church, my school, the team my kid plays soccer on, my neighborhood, maybe within my family. And that's where most people go, this thing of domestic minor sex trafficking is not something we want to talk about because we don't want to acknowledge that it's actually a thing. And so back in 2009, that's really kind of where it hit me. And I was kind of in a transition place, like, what am I going to do next with some nonprofit things I'd done through my life? And that just gripped me. And I thought, okay, if American kids are being targeted by three kinds of people, here's what I found out. American kids are being targeted by three kinds of people: perverts, predators, and pimps. And the perverts, the predators, and the pimps are preying on kids when they're online. Not like church praying for kids. They're preying on our kids. And when that epiphany hit me, I thought, you know what? If this whole thing of sexual exploitation of kids and the crime of domestic minor sex trafficking, if the online life of kids plays such a key role in that, then guess what? We can get on the front end of this thing. And we can find a way to end it before it starts, because our Heart at the Stop Trafficking Project, like, we never want a student ever have to be, quote unquote, rescued by law enforcement. We don't want a kid to ever have to be examined by a sexual assault nurse examiner. We don't ever want a kid to have a lifetime of housing and resources and counseling and food stamps because of the trauma they've gone through. So we're like, let's do something on the other end, let's just talk business, pure return on investment, the amount of money it takes to get a message out to kids to go, this is why you need to be super careful when you're online, versus the money it costs to pull a kid out of a sex trafficking situation and take care of them for the next 15, 20 years of their life. For me, from that aspect, it just made sense.
Sure.
So I was like, you know what? I'm going to dedicate and throw my life into that.
So you've said perverts, predators, pimps. Distinguish between the pervert and the predator.
I was gonna ask the same question.
That's because brilliant minds think alike.
Yeah.
And you're brothers, so you're just connected that way. So it's awesome. Yeah. So the perverts and the predators, it often plays out like this. Pornography plays a role. And what happens is this is the patterns I'm seeing, because I've personally spoken out of over 140,000 people, primarily just in Kansas and Missouri, and about 115,000 plus students counting in mostly public schools. Here's what I'm finding. I'm seeing addictions to pornography happening at younger and younger ages that turn some of our kids into very perverted mentalities, because we live in this hyper-sexualized culture where everything is pornified, and pornography, honestly, it's a socially acceptable addiction in our country today. Okay? The perverts then act out on behavior to where they now step into predatory behavior. So the perversion that they learn based typically off of a porn addiction. So guys, listen, one of the patterns I'm seeing in schools is child-on-child sex increasing.
God darn, I've heard about this.
So I was just recently at a conference, a summit in Ohio, and one of the people I was on a panel with is a sexual assault nurse examiner. And one of the things that she talked about, what they're seeing, is that increasingly kids are coming into the hospital needing sexual assault nurse examinations, and it's familial. So like a cousin, a 12-year-old brother is experimenting on his 6-year-old sister, something he witnessed on porn,
right,
through his phone. So Pornhub released their statistics for the year 2023. They revealed that 91.3% of all porn is viewed through a cell phone.
91.3%.
So if kids, if that's becoming this addictive thing, so the perversion of what they're viewing,
it's a prerequisite to being a predator.
It's a prerequisite. Yeah.
It's
100%. You're exactly right, Frank. So that's where I distinguish, okay, now the perverts and the predators. So predatory behavior happens in a lot of ways, especially in online space. Once it steps into the pimps, the traffickers, now what is happening is in the online space, here's the goal, guys. The goal is this. The goal is to exploit the vulnerability in a kid in their online space in a way that it hurts their mind, okay? Because kids are gullible. Once they harm their mind and they can convince this student, regardless of how old they are, that life's going to be a lot better if you're with me, or I can provide that gift for you, the perversion and the predatory nature of these people allows them to discover what the vulnerabilities are in the kids. So if you need a pair of shoes, they'll buy a pair of shoes. If you need a boyfriend, I'll be your boyfriend. If you need a girlfriend, I'll be your girlfriend. If you need a daddy figure, I'll be your daddy figure. If you need a compatriot, I'll whatever they need. The vulnerability of the kids, then it steps out into that. So now when a kid decides I'm going to meet this person in person, That's where now, not just now I've harmed your mind, now I can harm your body. And what's happening is there's a false narrative in the Midwest and honestly in America about what we think sex trafficking of kids is. We think it's this creepy vehicle and an abduction, and that's not how it works. We can't say it never happens.
What's it, like 3%?
Very small. So, and what happens is when it happens, it gets glorified to just these ridiculous levels, so that the general public thinks that's how it is. In our lane, especially on the front end, to where our vision is literally to end it before it starts. In our lane, to end it before it starts, it's not about the creepy vehicle abduction. It's all 100% about life online and seduction. Because what's happening, a kid's being seduced, their mind's being harmed. Law enforcement finds themselves in very difficult positions because here's what's happening, guys. The kid is willingly walking away. There's no abduction, and the kid doesn't find out it's too late until it's too late.
So walk me through your typical grooming, the entire process. Here, first, let's start here. Who's more likely, male or female?
Both.
Equal. Come on, Russ.
Guys are more difficult to. So here's the thing. So if we're talking pure sex trafficking, it's probably going to be girls. If we're talking perversion and the predatory thing, here's the statistic you need to know. In the last 18 months leading up to the year January of 2024, they found a 1,000% increase of sextortion, primarily against boys. So what's happening is kids are so willing to take their clothes off, send naked pictures. Boys primarily are being targeted for that. So it comes back to the porn addiction. So a guy is viewing porn, gets addicted, receives a picture of a smoking hot naked female and says, "I showed you mine, show me yours."
Right.
Sends the picture. I hear this so often in the week, so I'm in school.
I'll tell you right now, put me in an 18-year-old boy's mind. I'm doing it.
And so the rest of the story after that happens is within some of the stories I hear from students telling me directly at the end of the school assemblies when they approach me to make disclosures is often within less than an hour of posting a picture. They're receiving demands saying, "You pay me X amount of dollars or I will make you famous online." That's sextortion.
Right.
So sextortion is increasing and becoming this gateway into increasing harms, particularly of our boys. Purely in sex trafficking, it is primarily going to be more females. In my estimation, from what I see, it's primarily pornography driven. Pornography is the engine driving sex trafficking. Because if you stop and think about it, kids are being shown porn by perverts, predators, and pimps. They tell me this all the time at younger and younger ages. They want to get them addicted. Why? Because once they show them pornography, the way the brain works, there's chemicals that release in the brain. Every time you view pornography, it becomes very addictive. So what happens is that then begins to desensitize people, but particularly kids. So now where this new friend online says, "Man, I really care about you. Here's a picture of me," which is typically never them, all right? Because you can be anybody you want to be online. The kid in their gullible stage says, "Wow, I showed you mine, show me yours." So the kids send the pictures back, and now their minds have been harmed, right? So what happens is now what's being played is the fantasy world that's being created online for our kids is then being taken into the real world initially with people who are now actually traffickers. So here are the real. So you want to play it out. Here's what happens. Let's talk about the issue of loneliness. Like the generation I speak to every week I'm in schools, this is the loneliest generation we've ever encountered on planet Earth.
And the most connected.
100% the most connected.
Unbelievable.
Totally unbelievable. And so I tell kids, listen.
It just shows you're wired for human contact.
Absolutely. And for a lot of kids, and listen, adults too, sometimes the loneliest place is not being by yourself. It's in a room full of people.
Yeah.
Okay, so perverts, predators, and pimps understand that. So lonely, isolated. Kids today feel more isolated than they've ever been before. And it can happen as simple as they find out through their phone that they weren't included. They didn't get invited. Mm-hmm. They got left out.
Right.
Okay, so now if a kid doesn't have proper adult supervision in their life, which a lot of kids don't, because a lot of kids don't have mom and dad at home. A lot of kids don't. Maybe they live with the grandparent, maybe they live with the guardian, maybe in the foster care system. So now at 2 o'clock in the morning with no adult supervision, they can look at that phone and find out all the things they missed out on. And the level of isolation that creates is just mind-boggling. Well, if you're a pervert, pimp, and you're preying on a kid online, guess what you're going to play off of? You're lonely and isolated. I'll fill that need.
Right.
Get them addicted to porn. Their mind's being harmed. It's going to make so much easier for them to be desensitized. Well, they're just going to willingly walk away. And I hear the story all the time. So you got loneliness, isolation. Let's talk about depression. Levels of depression amongst our kids in this current generation are off the charts.
What do you attribute it to?
I attribute it to a lot of factors. I attribute a lot of factors of just the general I find a general sense of helplessness and hopelessness amongst this generation. They look at all the things happening around us in the world and there's no hope. They hear adults from one end of the political spectrum to the other whining and complaining and pointing fingers and just can't ever do nothing right. And our kids are picking up on this, and this is what they're telling me. And so they're just kind of like wanting to pull away from all of it. They think the safe place is their screen.
Well, and how much of the screen is causing the depression because they're comparing themselves to the snapshot. Here, there's adults that do it.
That's right.
There's adults that get online, and every little snapshot that somebody puts up, here, they're not going to put the fight that they had. They're not going to put the bad stuff that's going on in their life. They're going to put these snapshots of all the good stuff going on in their life, and then it's just making you think yours is shit.
Yep. And that's exactly right, because kids tell me this all the time. It's like I look at the life of other people online and I compare it to what I'm going through, and it's a complete disconnect from reality. Therefore, it's critically important that as adults we understand this fantasy world that our kids are desperately searching for and engaging in their online space. If you're a pervert parapimp and you understand that kids are desperately seeking an escape from loneliness, isolation, and depression, you're going to feed that fantasy world, and you're going to understand 3 words. We boil it down to 3 words. It's all about the exploitation of vulnerability. Adults who want to help kids need to identify the vulnerability in the kid they care about, starting with the closest, tightest circle of influence, and then expand that out to your sports team, your family, your church, your school, whatever your community is. Identify what are the vulnerabilities in those kids, and then what can I do as an adult to keep that from being potentially exploited in their online space, because online is so important to our kids. So what we have to do as adults is we don't necessarily have to be experts in technology. We have to be experts in kids and understand the role that life plays. So you got a lonely, isolated, depressed kid, you better be paying attention to those things even more than are they on Snapchat or X or TikTok or whatever.
Here, I'll tell you right now, I'm a technology idiot. My 12-year-old does not have a phone, and I'm not giving her one.
Yep.
I'm not giving her a phone until she's in high school, and the only reason she's getting it is so that I know where she's at and I can track her.
Yep.
But other than that, she don't have a phone.
Don't you guys think that some of the responsibility to have moderators in these kind of spaces online should fall back on the tech companies? I mean, if they're creating these communities and allowing kids to interact, I feel like there should be some sort of moderation.
What about the porn sites? Right? I mean, the biggest common denominator I've heard coming from you is pornography. So there's nothing that
you don't have to go to a porn site to see porn. Porn is on every single app.
It's funny you said that.
Porn's on YouTube.
Yeah, we had a guest come on that got most of his pornography from Instagram.
That's right.
No,
Pinterest.
It was Twitter, Frank.
Porn on
Twitter.
Was it Twitter?
There's porn on Pinterest.
Whatever. Same thing.
Which I just feel like, for one, I don't understand why, and this may be a silly statement, but I don't understand why somebody who owns a pornography website would just give it away. And now I'm not saying
they're monetizing it somehow. They have to.
And I'm not real familiar with that, but for me, it's like if you have it. Now, I'm not saying that the product of people is acceptable to monetize. What I'm saying is that in a certain business model online, typically content like that, or not like that, but content there's a subscription fee. So to me, it just doesn't make sense why, if somebody chose that as a business model, which obviously I'm not condoning, why would they just give it away?
So listen, I'm no expert in this area, but what I follow people like Dr. Gail Dines and people who've studied this industry for years. I mean, bless them, the horrific work they got to do. from what I've understand how the industry works, this is where we've landed. Every click on porn is either directly or indirectly somehow connected to exploitation in various forms and even possibly trafficking. The way the algorithms work, right? It's no different than any other app, right? So you run a podcast, you want as many clicks as you can. If you were to monetize this thing, the more people you have, the more clicks, that's how the money's going to come in. That's how advertising is going to come in. It's no different for them. The problem is this: most kids are not viewing pornography on a porn site. Most kids are initially viewing it through all the apps. So to your original point, Frank, or Andrew, is why can't big tech do more? They can. They just don't want to. They don't need to, because it's all about monetizing. There are multiple lawsuits against different apps. There's multiple lawsuits. I mean, if you pay attention at the federal level, all the different efforts that are being made to kind of rein big tech in, and they pull them up to the hill, and they have all these, these hearings, and these big tech guys come in and they testify, and I mean, everybody's getting ripped to shreds, but the big tech just walks away and does nothing. National Center of Missing Exploited Children, they revealed that, on average last year, 2023, that on average there was 80,000 reports per day to their cyber crimes tip line of child sexual abuse material. That's just what was reported. 59% of the reports was prepubescent, 8% infants or toddlers.
Oh my
Jesus Christ!
I mean, this is the nature of the depravity. So when I talk about perverts, predators, and pimps, the perversion and the predatory behavior is opening the door wide open for pimps and traffickers to just step right into this space and go, man, this is easier than it's ever been before.
Gosh.
So then what I'm seeing along with that is I'm seeing levels of suicide attempts and suicide ideation in kids who know someone who tried to die by suicide, just out of control, guys. And they're talking to me about it all the time. Because listen, if you're a kid who's lonely, isolated, depressed, you fall into this trap. It's a vicious cycle. So now the cyberbullying, most of the cyberbullying that we see online is because there's naked pictures of a kid online, typically self-produced. So the Internet Watch Foundation told us that the year 2021 was the worst year ever for online child sexual abuse material. 2021, worst year ever. The deep dive of the data was they found a threefold increase of self-generated images of children 7 to 10.
Jesus.
Self-generated.
Okay, so hold that, because that's 2021, worst year ever. Their report for 2022 revealed a 129% increase of self-generated images, children 7 to 10. Their 2023 report began to reveal just devastating statistics. They said 10 years ago, when they're monitoring sites that they're trying to get taken down for child sexual abuse material, 10 years ago, there was never self-generated images.
So I'm assuming
last year they reported for 2023 that over 100,000 websites are trying to get taken. There were self-generated images of children on these websites. So this is the pattern. So what's happening without adults engaging in the lives of their kids? So to your point, Frank, like my daughter's not going to get a phone until she's high school, whatever parents decide to do. We have got to protect our kids, because big tech is not going to, the government's not going to, your state government's not going to, local organizations are going to do their best. It's going to come down to the familial role primarily. It would sure be great if big tech would help parents with this, with the things they can do. They are simply not interested.
Here's what I don't understand. Okay. Take everything that causes an increase in dopamine in your brain. Okay. Cigarettes, marijuana, alcohol, gambling. They all have regulations behind them, but sex doesn't.
Nope.
I don't understand the rationale behind this. Right.
If I had that answer, I could fix this. I can't explain.
I mean, those are the common denominators,
100%.
right? You're talking about dopamine, serotonin. Okay. Yep. That's the main chemical in the midbrain that's going to say, I want this, I want this, I want this, right?
100%.
And the same thing that makes you want to do cigarettes, cocaine, alcohol is the same thing that makes you want to do sex. Okay. And here, sex is probably worse, because just from, an innate, your drive to have sex is probably stronger than your drive to eat. Okay.
So now you have this innate drive, and we don't have nothing to kind of monitor it for these kids.
And everything you're saying is for an adult.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
So now take it down to a kid whose brain is not going to be fully developed until
they're
they're 25 years old.
Yeah. The executive function part, not till they're 25.
So this is why the appetite within the industry is getting younger and younger all the time. This is why, from what I'm told, appetites on porn. This is why I'm told by people who study this that, and when you get to the dark web stuff, the hobbyists that are sharing things, it's getting younger and younger. I mean, we're talking infants. We're talking toddlers. I mean, how do you even wrap your brain around that level of depravity? Now I go and I'm standing in front of a group of students, right? So just last week, so I was in a school community, and what we do is we come into a community and we educate and empower the adults about this issue, give them a wake up call. I call it a velvet wrap brick, like this is happening, okay? Then the next day we go and we do age appropriate student assemblies. We break up, it's different content, different presentation style, different amount of time. Kindergarten, first and second grade, online safety.
That young.
Online safety.
Wow.
Third, fourth, and fifth grade, online safety. 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, we're briefly introducing the concept of global trafficking and appealing to the hero and kids to help them understand how your role in your life online plays. And we're unpacking all these things. 6th, 7th, 9th to 12th grade, we take it another level and we put a level of responsibility in high schoolers to go, listen, whatever you do in your online space, the littles in this school district or in your life are going to take it to the next level. And what happens is listen, there's this principle, the truth sets you free, right? Kids don't want to be exploited. Like, that's not something they're signing up for, yet they are signing up for it without understanding. When we come in and we can kind of turn the lights on and provide them with our assemblies are fun. Like it's not serious like what this conversation is. We're having a good time with kids, especially at the younger ages. As they get older, like there's a couple of victim survivor stories and lived experience stories that play such a key role to get kids' attention. To go, guys, I'm not, and this is the message that I want kids to hear, and I also want adults to hear. I'm honestly, guys, Andrew and Frank, when I go stand in front of students, if I was angry at kids, they would pick it up and I wouldn't be successful. I'm honestly not angry at kids, and I'm not against technology.
No, you can't be angry at kids. They don't know any better.
That's right. So when I tell them I'm not angry at you and I'm not against your technology, but I'm going to tell you the truth, they go, you know what? They line up. Thanks for not shaming us today. Thanks for telling us the truth about this. Thanks for sharing the story about your friends. Thank you for talking about issues that are relevant to us. Can I tell you something? I need some help. And the disclosures start to come to where these are the patterns. Okay, and the patterns are that child-on-child sex is increasing. These are the disclosures they make. The patterns of sextortion are skyrocketing because child sexual abuse material online, where they're taking their clothes off, sending naked pictures on their own, is increasing. And kids at younger and younger ages are revealing to me their addictions to porn. And they come and go, I need help. Kids are not dumb. You unpack this in the way that we do in the school assemblies. We have a community that's engaged. We get adults in the community. If I come into a community, I'm going to do school assemblies. I want law enforcement from that community there first and foremost. I want medical people there. I want counselors. I want then the faith community. I want the school personnel. And then y'all come, moms, dads, foster parents, grandparents. I'm going to give you a velvet wrap brick to help you understand what your kids are actually experiencing online. And if you don't step up as a local community, and I don't care if you're inner core downtown, or you're a suburb, or you're rural or ultra rural, the internet's there.
Do you think that sex traffickers aren't casting a wide net, and it's very intertwined in community base locally? I mean, obviously there's a nationwide issue, but you mentioned communities and educating these communities. Are there sex traffickers that are on the East Coast trying to reach adolescents in the Midwest?
Yes, it's all of it, and that's the problem. You've got everything. You've got everything that's probably going to get the attention of all your major law enforcements with 3 letters, right? All of those groups, and at that level, they're going to be hyper vigilant and doing everything they can to be monitoring online and in person these people who are known, like almost like cartel level, like gang level trafficking. And then it comes down to a local community. Listen, I was in a very small rural community in the state of Kansas, and I got done doing a school assembly, and a girl walked up and made a disclosure. And the very next day, because a brave middle school girl had made this disclosure, a guy was arrested and put in jail the next day on $1.3 million bond, because one brave junior high girl came forward after and this was a middle school age appropriate student assembly, right? Comes and makes the disclosure by the next day. Small rural community, right? Front page of the newspaper the next day has this guy's picture on there. Local, grew up in the community. Okay. By the next day, because one girl told her story, by the next day when he was arrested, there's 4 kids that had come forward and made disclosure. Okay, within 8 months, they were up to 14 kids. I was just in that community last January. The guy won't be eligible for parole until the year 2032, 20 kids. He grew up in that small rural community. Everybody knew him.
So
Nobody knew what was going on. He was enticing kids online. Remember, Hurt the Brain. It's not about a creepy vehicle abduction. It's about life online seduction. The kids are seduced by this fantasy world. He meets them in person. Now it's too late. Until it's too late. And here's the problem. The other message I give kids is I'm not angry. I'm not against technology. I also tell them this: don't ever be embarrassed, ashamed, or afraid to tell an adult when you've made a mistake online. I have prepared the adults the day before, the evening before. You better be prepared when a kid comes and tells you that something nefarious is happening in their online space. And your first response should not be, I told you not to get that app. Because if that's your first default as a parent or as an adult or a guardian or a foster parent, you've already lost the battle.
I'd have failed then.
We've already failed.
Yeah, I would have failed because that's
100%.
the first thing I would have done.
100%. So in that point, the kid, and that
Now they don't want to talk to you about it.
Then they won't talk. That kid that can come later. But in that moment, if you want to be a trusted adult for a kid, that default is not the place to start, because they are now in a place we have to understand the science of the brain, what that kid has gone through. This was not an overnight thing. This has been an online casing and grooming process. See, the casing, most people talk about grooming. They don't talk about casing. Casing is where an online pervert, especially a pimp, will get into an online space. They will push the buttons of that kid. Would you send me a naked picture? I'm not sending you a naked picture. That's disgusting. That's gross. Oh, okay. How about what's going on in your life? Where do you go to school? What school district are you in? They'll back off. A lot of kids, it's right away. They'll start sending the naked pictures out of the gate, especially on some of the apps where, like Snapchat, it disappears. The kids in their, what I affectionately refer to as their half-brain stage of life, where their brains are still developing, they're not thinking about the screenshot on the other end and how that picture is going to be used against them. They just think it's going to disappear. All the apps have their strengths and their weaknesses as an app. A pervert pimp is going to take the strength and the weakness of that app and use that to exploit a kid as much as possible. So technology itself is not necessarily the enemy, but man, it's a tool that's being used to exploit kids.
So are what they doing saying, hey, I have this picture, you're going to do X, Y, or Z, or I'm going to put this picture all online? Is that how that's going down?
100%. So the typical sextortion that they're seeing nationwide, where there was the 1,000% growth in the 18
so
months
not
leading up to
money.
It is about money.
Well, not them
primarily
giving money.
They're demanding. So I had a story where I had a kid in 9th grade. The long story short was he approached me and said, I made the biggest mistake of my life 10 days ago. He said, but it started for me in 2nd grade as a 9th grade boy. Okay. He said, in 2nd grade, I accidentally found porn on a phone. I never told an adult. I was too what? Embarrassed, ashamed, and afraid. Okay. Became an addiction. 2nd grade, now he's 9th grade. So he told me 10 days ago, he said, this is verbatim when he said, 9th grade boy, I got a picture of a smoking hot naked female who said, I showed you mine, show me yours. He said this, I didn't even think. I took the pictures, sent the videos. Within less than an hour, this kid started receiving threatening messages demanding he pay $1,000 or they're going to make him famous online. This is the thing. So he pays the money. So due to your 9th grade, where'd you get $1,000? He goes, I took my dad's credit card when they were asleep.
Oh, man.
Shit.
So it'd been 10 days, $3,500 on dad's credit card. I look at this 9th grade boy. I said, we got to tell your dad. He's like, I cannot tell my dad. He's going to kill me. I'm like, now your dad's not going to be happy, but I promise he's not going to actually kill you. Here's the cool thing, guys. Frank and Andy, the dad had attended the evening event I do the night before. New perspective. I say to this kid, by the way, do you understand how credit card bills work? Right? Like your dad's going to get a bill.
Yeah.
He's going to see some charge on it.
And you're like, dude, what is this? I go, I promise you it's going to go better for you if you tell your dad you made a mistake rather than him finding out on your own. So that's what happened. $18,000 on dad's credit card.
Man.
This kid is in counseling still today because this kid wants to die by suicide. Because guess what? His pictures are everywhere.
They actually put him online.
Of course they do.
Whether you pay him or
Of
not.
course they do. Of course they do. They don't care. So this is so when I talk about perverts
How
and predators,
come there's-
when I talk about perverts, predators, and pimps, the perversion that leads predators to act, you're not human anymore. That's the depravity of pornography. You're not human. Like it's just an activity on a screen. It's just so the depravity comes with that. The fantasy world, this kid buys into this thing. Now you got this person online, and they're preying off that, guys. And our kids are so gullible.
So, how is it that we are not able to track people looking this shit up? How are we not able to track a male or female who is seeking nude pictures of a 14-year-old boy?
Yeah, so the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children, so in the last year or so, they've come up with a thing called Take It Down. So for kids who have made mistakes online, there are naked images of them. There's been a dipping of the toe into the water of the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children working with some of these apps where these kids' pictures are to start to get them taken down. But guys, there's so much work to be done because not all the apps agree to it, like all these things. There are glimmers of hope, but then there's this side. Listen, guys, I know who work in cyber crimes who have to look at this stuff all day long.
Oh, it's got to be brutal.
Can't do it for very long.
It's got to be brutal.
So tough, especially because most of the time they're family guys.
Yeah.
And they've got kids of their own, and they're seeing guys. I can't even describe to you the things that. And so years ago, some of these guys who I have worked with and some of the gals, like they'd have on a weekly basis, 30 some cases on their desk.
How
Now it's in the hundreds.
Now there, I think is a good use of technology and big tech to step in. Why don't you create a bot that scrubs the internet?
And they do have some bots. So law enforcement has bots that they're working with, and that's one of the places. So that's why I always say I'm not against technology. So within law enforcement, they are able to use some bots. They're doing some of this. I'll just call it scrubbing and giving them the information they need. But here's the thing, you guys. With overall a movement where we're against law enforcement, okay, which I am 1,000% not.
Right, I'm with
but
you.
as a nation,
Yeah.
and then some of those same people go, well, how come we're not doing anything to keep kids safe online? And it's like, well, you just completely took all their funding away. You just so I'm not gonna go too far down that rabbit trail,
No, I
but
gotcha.
but these are some of the realities that we have to be honest with and deal with. And so then it comes down to training, guys. I'll go into some of our rural communities and I work with law enforcement all the time, and sometimes they're doing everything they can, but they can't even go to a training because they've got so much stuff going on in their community that they're so busy with online things that kids are doing, they're scrambling. And what happens is once law enforcement is trained and they know what to look for, they have just increased their workload by so much.
So
in our lane to end it before it starts, unfortunately, we have to pass so much of this on to law enforcement. Because kids are coming and making disclosures of everything from someone within my family harmed me, a babysitter, all these things, and all the things that don't have anything necessarily to do with sex trafficking. Because our vision to end, our full vision, okay, our short version, end it before it starts. Our full vision is end domestic minor sex trafficking. The key is this: before it starts, by disrupting the exploitation of vulnerability. The exploitation of vulnerability can be as simple as I'm lonely, isolated, depressed, and I'm a 12-year-old, 14-year-old, 18-year-old, doesn't matter what gender, and I'm online, and there's a potential thing happening there where I'm going to be exploited. That's in that phase there. And so often, law enforcement has to get involved at that phase.
there's no means of tracking who's posting these pictures, where they're posting.
Oh, sure there is at certain levels. And law enforcement is doing the best they can, especially when you're talking things on the hobbyists and things like that. I mean, but guys, this is the problem. Law enforcement is buried with this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, they're underfunded and undermanned. And to Russ's point, I feel like you have to create the awareness at a community level, and it really makes sense because it's here and it's happening.
Yep.
And then I think the only, with awareness, I think also comes, people are so against censorship. And I get to some level that, we should have a freedom to speak and interact without being censored. But there's a certain level of censorship that I think is required for online communities. And I feel like the only way to counteract the actual problem and to get the increase to slow down is if technology is driving part of the sex trafficking, then the only way to combat it is with awareness and with technology. You can't fight
So here's a perfect example of how this can work, guys. So obviously I'm not naming communities because I protect communities, and one of the things we do is we actually survey students 6th grade through 12th grade. We measure their vulnerabilities, and we send that data back to schools to give them insight in how they can help kids. Right. So recent community, I was in we did what we do. Okay. So age appropriate student presentation for kindergarten, first and second graders. Right. One of the principles that we teach a kid at that age is there's no secrets. Okay, so you see something online, we unpack safe feelings versus unsafe feelings. If you ever see something that makes you feel unsafe, you're not going to keep that a secret. You're going to tell the adult in your life. Okay, we got a second grade boy sits through this very fun school assembly, unpacking all these things. And by the way, it's primarily about my dog Bandit, who's a miniature Australian Shepherd, who's a very obedient dog. But I still put him on a leash when I take him out in public, out of our house, because it's not that I don't trust our dog Bandit. I can't trust the environment. So my message to kids is, it's not that I don't trust you necessarily. He can't trust the internet. So this fun presentation for kindergarten, first and second graders. The next day, the school counselor sends me an email. 2 days later, sends me an email and says, we had a second grade boy went home the day after the assembly, is playing Fortnite. Now, nothing against Fortnite in and of itself. Okay, no problem. However, a pervert, now acting as a predator, gets into that space. And this kid opened the door through all the ways that kids can do that. I know what I'm doing. Met a new friend. Gonna let him play in the game. Okay? No adult supervision. Complete stranger. Trying to get a little boy in second grade, take his pants off, take pictures. The boys just sat through the assembly. This is something that I don't feel safe with. I'm not going to keep it a secret. Goes into the kitchen where mom's making dinner and starts whispering, because this is what we teach little kids. No secrets. They whisper, right? Very fun, interactive assembly. Goes in and whispers, Mom, secret, no secrets. She's like, what are you talking about? Mom's not paying any attention. Didn't even know there was an assembly. Didn't pay attention. Didn't read the emails, right? Completely disconnected. The boy puts his hand on his hip, stomps his foot, and said, I need screen help, because that's what we taught him. You see something makes you feel unsafe, no secrets, find an adult, put your hand on your hip, stomp your foot, don't yell it, don't scream it, don't whisper it, say it like you mean it. I need screen help. This kid does that. Mom's like, what? Walks in, there's the iPad. By this point, the dude on the screen is totally naked now. Guys, all we did is come into school assembly, brought it local. That's ending it before it starts.
Yeah.
That's ending before it starts. And we have multiple stories like that. So what it does is, yes, we need big tech to take more responsibility. Yes, we need more engagement. Yes, we need law enforcement to be empowered with laws and more resources to be on the back end of this. Because listen, law enforcement's job is not to be proactive. They're reactionary by nature. Let's go get the bad guys after the crime's been committed, for the most part, especially in these things. When it's all online, man, they're in such a difficult position. Let's get the medical people trained so they can see what there might be missing when they've got a kid come in who might be a victim of trafficking. You get the law enforcement trained, you get the medical people trained, and you get people into schools like what we're trying to do to get on the front end of this. I'm telling you, we will move the needle to keep kids safer if we bring it local.
So if someone has a picture online that they didn't put up there, there's no means of getting that thing down.
So if they go to our website, the stoptraffickingproject.com, we have a link that will take you directly to what's called Take It Down, which is what I was talking about earlier. It's operated by the National Center of Missing Exploited Children. Can't guarantee that kid's picture will be taken down, but it's a place to report it and get at least the process started. We have to assume, as parents, those pictures will never disappear. Okay, yeah. We just have to assume that by the sheer number of self-generated images that are being taken by our kids. Okay, Once they're there, though, there is some help to get those taken down. It's not perfect, but at least it's a start.
What's the percentage?
I don't know. Honestly, don't know the answer to that.
Let's operationally define, because this is something that I've been wondering, a pimp, right? Because I think people hear the word pimp and they'll have this certain stereotype.
Sure.
And I got a feeling the pimp is not the stereotype that's in most people's head,
Correct.
right? So
it's not the movies. We're not talking about the movie Taken, right? We're not talking about, the top hat and all that crazy stuff, right? We're not talking about, So what we find is there's different levels. So there is what we call the guerrilla trafficking, which is very violent, typically gang related violence and all that kind of stuff. However, more often than not, you may be shocked to learn this, but in the Midwest, the primary place of trafficking happens within your own family.
Drugs.
Familial.
Right.
So there was a high school I was at last school year, and at the same high school, 7 students independent from each other came and made disclosures, 5 girls, 2 boys, made disclosures that they were, here's what happening. They were required by one family member to perform a sexual act on another family member if they want to eat.
Jesus.
That's sex trafficking. Okay, so the thing of value was food, which should be a normal thing for a kid in a family. So people think, again, it's this creepy vehicle abduction, this very glorified thing. It's actually about seduction, or within families, every single one of those 7 kids, okay, initially you want to eat, you perform the sexual act on another family member to eat, but then guess what? Those kids are also being sold to other family members. And so cousin whoever, grandpa whoever would pay cash to whoever in the family. These were high school kids in the same school district. So this gives us insight. One of the other patterns I'm picking up on is that increasingly what we would call the traffickers, they're getting younger. If you think about it, if your role is to recruit a kid online, then us sitting here, we're not up with the latest lingo. Listen, I'm in schools every week. It changes week to week. Like the latest dance craze, you never know, is the gritty still cool or what's, like, we don't know, right? It changes all the time. The way they talk, the codes that they use on their phones and their devices mean something, and it's changing constantly. So guess who's going to be better at enticing kids? Remember, they understand 3 words: exploitation of vulnerability. They're looking for vulnerabilities to exploit in a kid. So if you can talk the latest language, that kid's going to be more apt to respond to you because you get it. You're talking the way we talk, especially online. So those are the patterns. What's not changing is the demand. And here's the problem. We focus so much on the people selling kids for sex, and that's primarily law enforcement's responsibility. If we as the community really want to help end this before it starts, we have to address it at the issue of demand. And demand looks like a guy who's married and has a good job and has some influence in the community and has disposable income and has a porn addiction. And we're surrounded by those guys. And the only reason there are sex sellers selling kids is because there are sex buyers. And that's honestly where we have to put more of the focus of our attention. So how do we deal with that? You know how we deal with that? It takes guys who are willing to have an authentic conversation with their teenage tween son, or the kids on their team, or the girls in their club, or at their church or school, to go, you know what? Life online today is a whole nother ballgame.
Has an adult ever came to you and said, I have an online problem?
Constantly.
And said,
and it always started when they were young.
But do they ever come to you and say, I have been seeking young children?
No. I know they would never come admit that. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
They would never come admit that.
Okay. Is there ever a case where porn isn't involved and the drive to have sex has been suppressed, and not only has it grown, but now it's grown perverse?
So I don't think we can never say never, like globally or, in America. All I can tell you is from all the interactions that I have had and all the situations we're familiar with, every single time, 100% of the time, life online played a role and pornography was always a part of it. And here's the challenge with pornography is at younger and younger ages that kids become addictive. What people tell me who study this is like just spending more time with porn is not a thing. It has to become more degrading. So one of the things I heard this sexual assault nurse examiner address in this conference I was just at in Ohio was they talked about how what they're seeing with kids is that with like almost incest level things. Apparently, one of the genres of pornography is like stepdad, stepdaughter type stuff. So if kids are watching this and this is kind of like desensitizing them, becoming normalized, okay, now like in the situation, like there's a guy in Kansas City who I respect really highly, and he's just an amazing guy, and I'm not going to name him, just kind of protect who he is, but he's just a really outstanding member of the community. He was telling me just recently, because he was doing some inner city work, and he was telling me about a situation where they had a 3-year-old who was being sold for sex by an 11-year-old. So how do we even wrap our minds around that? Okay, so but here's the thing: good point, Frank, because it all comes back to demand. If we end demand, like if for some reason we had this warped reason to shut down any vehicle company, we do everything we can to make sure people don't buy that vehicle. Okay, shut that down. Honestly, here's how this is the oversimplification of how we end sex trafficking kids. Men quit buying kids for sex.
It's men. It's never women.
Done. Can't say it's never women because we have women who are also perpetrators, but the vast majority of the demand side are men.
It's men. And
so I had a situation. This is going to give you good insight. There was an app. I was in a very small rural community. I mean, I'm talking small, like you pull in the population town, says 168 people, right?
Right.
I mean, I'm talking so small, there's not a Dollar General for 40 miles. We're talking rural, right? 2 girls using the same app, okay? It was the Omegle app, which Omegle shut down the first week of November last year. The owner decided to shut it down because he's being sued by so many people, couldn't handle financially, and psychologically it was creating him stress. Oh, poor baby, right?
I don't know anything about this app.
Omegle literally was an app that advertised, come connect with strangers.
Jesus Christ.
That's literally what it was for. Okay?
I mean, as a parent, you need to really, like for me,
100%.
I could see that like on one of my kids' iPad and been like, I'd went right by it and never paid attention.
100%. Yep. So they're using this app and so they're engaging. I want you to hear this. They're on their school issued device. They're engaging in online sex on school property using a school issued device during school hours, having online sex with boys their age. Okay. They come make the disclosure to me at the end of the school assembly. I was there on a Wednesday. They both told me, independent from each other, the 2 girls didn't know they're engaging this. Okay. Don't know this. We're going to meet the boys on Saturday. Yeah, no, you're not. Okay. We got law enforcement involved, school issued device. Here's what we found out. They're not boys their age. They never are. Can't say never. You can never say never. Rarely they are, right?
Usually older.
So to my point where I'm telling you this story. Problem is I have thousands of stories. I'm trying to figure out which ones to tell you. So the boys, the youngest what we found out was law enforcement told me a couple weeks later that they were all registered sex offenders. The youngest was 27. The oldest was 87. Whew. There's your demand.
Man.
So when you ask me what does demand look like, demand looks like anything. So this is why in communities there's hope in this, guys. There's hope because the hope lies here. All we have to understand are 3 words: exploitation of vulnerability. So it takes concerned adults to go, what's the vulnerability in the kid I care about, and what am I going to do? Listen, we're gonna have to be active in this. We can't just sit back and wait for other people to do it. It's going to have to come down local. So what am I going to do to keep that that vulnerability from being exploited, understanding the role that Life Online will absolutely 100% play in that. So that's why in our organization, the Stop Trafficking Project, as a 501c nonprofit, we developed a strategy we call Be Alert. And Be Alert is an acronym for we want individuals and organizations and schools and churches to go, we will be active, learning, empowered, relentless, and we'll do it together. And this is the thing. There's no single organization that can deal with this. That's why we collaborate with all these different entities. That we have trusted relationships with. That's why adults in communities need to understand you actually are not alone in this. Like there are other people who feel like my kids shouldn't have a cell phone till they're in high school. Unfortunately, there's a lot of other people who go, you know what? They have negated their responsibility to be their kid's parent and they're just being their best friend. So you're 8, here, have a cell phone. Why? Because you got to keep up with the Joneses.
Listen, I struggle because my daughter will have girls spend the night, and every single time they'll have a phone. And so now what do I do?
Yep.
Right? You know, and then you end up policing this damn phone all night long.
Yep.
Right? So it's just...
Or what a lot of families do who have that same thing. Hey, you coming over our house? Hey, that's cool. Glad you have your phone. If you need to get a hold of your parents, let me know. The basket right there is where all the cell phones go. This is our house, our rules.
And that's really what you need to do.
100%.
Yeah, I think you have to.
I mean, that's really what you need to do.
100%.
And I'm fortunate in that all of my friends, our kids are the same age, and we're very much like-minded with these phones.
Yep.
Right? But there's an occasional where, you know, she'll have some friends spend the night and, you know, boom, there comes the damn cell phone every single time.
For sure.
You know, and I think what I need to do now that I'm just talking about this out loud is just let them know up front, hey, if you're coming over here, I'm taking your phone. If that's a problem, don't come over here.
Yep.
You know, I mean.
Yep. Have the conversation with the parent.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Like, well, here, I mean, at the end of the day.
Here's our rules.
Here.
Hey, if you need to get a hold of your kid, text them. Let me know. I'll get the kid your phone.
Here, not for
but
nothing.
Not for all night. Yep, 100%.
If your kid's spending the night over here and you don't have my cell phone number,
right?
Maybe they shouldn't be spending the night over here.
Right. You should not be there at all.
You know, that's another.
So Russ, on top of bringing awareness to communities and stopping it, how do you unravel the fact that kids are already ingrained in their technology, and outside of a conversation that the parents have with the child, how do you start creating some steps that they can step into and start? I mean, at some point people have to police themselves. While a kid is under my roof, it would be, you know, there's going to be some rules, but how do you leverage your time and still be able to kind of watch what they're doing? Yeah,
you know, so there's a few principles that we kind of throw out to parents, and you know, one of the things is like, okay, when it comes to this whole thing, don't live in fear, but be wise, right? Because like the answer is not to burn the house down and destroy Wi-Fi and throw all the cell phones in the closest lake. I mean, that's because you know they'll go to their friend's house and technology's around us, and we're using technology right now to communicate with people. So technology's not the enemy, right? So we have to understand. But technology is tremendous complexity. So what that means is don't live in fear, but be wise. So what that means is understand it's literally no longer a matter of if your kid is going to encounter something nefarious in online space. It's when it happens, how are we going to lead them through that? If we lead them through that in a healthy way and they understand that this was a bad experience for me, guess what? If you have a trusted adult in a kid's life, by nature, a kid, even though they don't verbalize they want boundaries, they know they want them. They feel safer within that. There's actually more freedom within that boundary than there is just go crazy. That applies to kids' online life too, and they will respect that.
There was Father Mark was on here, and he talked about a study where if there's a boundary on a playground, the kids will use the entire playground.
Yep.
And if there is no boundary, they tend to stay closer.
That's right.
So that was interesting to me.
Yeah, the psychological ways that people function is just amazing.
Right.
So don't live in fear. Be wise. The other thing we actually tell parents, if you are a parent of a kid, be their parent. Quit being their best friend. Right. Now, it doesn't mean you can't be friends with your kids. That's not what we're saying. What it means is be their parent first. Set those boundaries. So what that means is like if you're just a best friend in your online space, you're going to put zero accountability on a phone. You're going to pay no attention to what that phone their kid's doing. If you're a parent, you're going to monitor that. Right. So be their parent, not their best friend. One of the other things is we tell people is, listen, you need to understand that there's a generational difference between kids. Like most of us, we live our life as adults and then we do some things online. Honestly, for kids today, the lines are really blurred. It's all one and the same. My relationship online, my communication online. So it becomes very difficult. So like now for you, like, okay, I'm gonna make sure my kid doesn't have anything till high school. It's 100% possible, and the kids aren't harmed. They do just fine. Now, they may feel like they're left out a little bit, but they honestly have more joy in their lives from what we found. They do better in school. They have more friends. All these different things that we find with kids, all these different studies that are out there to go, man, you kids who aren't like completely just staring at a screen all the time, it actually does not harm them as the kids think they're going to be harmed, right? One of the things that we tell parents is especially if there's somebody listening who has really little kids, you need to start young. You need to start really young, because guess what? By the time you've got a 14-year-old or a 16-year-old, and that app has become a place where you have identified, based on 3 words, exploitation of vulnerability, my kid is super vulnerable to be exploited in that app. They can't have that, but they've had it for 2 years. You've just picked World War III to get that app gone. Now you have to communicate with them in a different style. This is why we are so vigilant in our lane and before it starts to be in schools telling the kids the truth about this stuff, because we want to help parents. So now a parent goes, you know what, I got to get my kid off of whatever this app is. So here's the thing we tell parents in that, every major war is won one battle at a time. So you need to go back to be your kid's parent, not their best friend. Don't live in fear. Be wise. Seek wisdom and going, what are the baby steps I take towards help my kid get rid of this app? One of the things I tell people all the time is this: is you're only as safe as your stupidest friend online. So you stop about that. So generationally, a lot of us, we kind of live this show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Mm-hmm. Kids today, like, who are you talking to online? Well, I met this new friend. He's so nice. She's so nice. They're so nice. How do you know? Do you actually know this person? Well, I know them because they sent me pictures. Do you know this person? Well, but we've been chatting on all 14 different apps for 6 months. Do you know this person? And when I have these conversations with kids, so often it comes down to they have no clue who they're talking to. Show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Right? So what's the solution to that? We as adults better have this understanding. I deal with so many parents today who think falsely that if they take their kid's phone and go through their phone, that they've invaded their privacy. That is a complete falsity. That's absolutely not true.
Talk to me about that, because that's the first thing that I would, that I was thinking, like, here, listen. So
unless your kid is independently wealthy, is paying for that phone and paying their own bill, it's your phone. It's not their phone.
Right.
So you should know every single password. You should listen, it's not where you're going to exacerbate your kid and irritate your kid. You go on that phone, you have the right. Law enforcement backs me up. Every legal people I talk about, they all back us up on that. The kids are going to go, you're invading my privacy. No, I'm not your parent.
Well, but here, I must have misunderstood you, because I thought you were what you were saying was it was a false sense of security for me. To think that I can take my child's phone, go through it. And that's not what you were saying.
That's not what I'm saying at all. No.
Okay.
So listen, I just had a situation. I was in a school not too long ago, and literally the morning of the assembly, I'm about to start a school assembly in 30 minutes. A mom contacts the principal, panicked, because they had Bark, they had Canopy, they had Covenant Eyes, they had all these things on all their devices. They're monitoring their eighth grade son's cell phones. The first year you got a cell phone. They were part of the Wait Till 8 movement, which is wait till 8th grade before you give your student a cell phone. They had everything locked down. This kid in 8th grade with the parents locking everything up. I mean, to the point to where they could see real time what the kid's doing on the cell phone. Okay. Kid sends a naked picture of himself to a female, right? We don't know if it's a female. Turns out it wasn't a female. They're freaking out, panicking. Okay. Those parents did everything correct. The good news was, okay, that picture is going to be out there. They haven't been able to get it taken down. But you've got a loving set of parents who, here's the thing you have to understand. When we talk about the exploitation of vulnerability, there are various forms of exploitation where you will encounter student. We have students from the extreme, they come and make disclosures, and we find out they're actually a victim of sex trafficking. Okay, let's end it before it continues. Let's end it before it starts, because the next level, at whatever level we find, or you got the second grade boy who goes in the kitchen and whispers, Mom, there's a secret, I need screen help, and nothing happened to him yet. He didn't see the picture of the guy on the phone because Mom went in. Now, the boy's got enough trauma in second grade that there's this adult guy on there, I don't know who it is, trying to get me to take this picture, but he knew it made him feel unsafe. You've got everything in between. And that's where we have to have this understanding that if we will literally just engage in this strategy as adults that we call our Be Alert strategy, to be active and learning and empowered and relentless together, the key is this: let's not let our kids think they're alone in this battle on their own. And that's really key.
This conversation is exhausting me.
Russ, you've got to, I mean,
I don't know.
you've got to be built a certain way to.
You said it in your questionnaire. You have to be called to do this.
100% correct.
You have to be called to do it. I mean, I don't know how many kids you have.
I have 2.
Boys, girls, how old?
Both girls.
Both girls, how old?
15 and 20.
Jesus. I don't know how you're not like a paranoid wreck all the time.
Well, I'll say this: there's probably no other children that are as educated on the topic as your children.
Yeah, neither of them have. So my 20-year-old in college doesn't have social media to this day by her choice.
Yeah, and I think
you're lucky. That's really, really lucky that. I mean, that's a blessing.
I think what Russ is out there trying to do as well is, you're not only out there speaking about how a parent should, interact with their children, but you're actually practicing that in your own life.
Yep.
And so like you're a great resource to draw on for parents to say, okay, well, this is here, and I'm going to help you and give you steps to actually provide the support that your children need, and you don't even know that they need it.
Yeah, that's the goal.
You all right there?
God.
His mind is
Especially
blown.
when you got a 12 and a 10-year-old that are getting ready to go into that. And here, and at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. You're talking about infants.
Everything in between.
What about?
Listen, I've got adults who in their mid-30s got exploited for the first time in their lives.
So
On a dating app or something.
Yep. Lonely, isolated, depressed. So here, focus on these things. Kids and adults, okay? I'm working primarily with kids. Loneliness, isolation, depression, suicide, bullying online, controlling relationships, and pornography. You take the trifecta of those 7 things, you put somebody on a vicious circle that's going to take them down a whirlpool of destruction anywhere you get on that ride. You better have somebody help you pull you out of that. And that's why it has to be local.
Now,
You got to have conversations with people. Look them in the eye and go, are you okay?
what is your website?
TheStopTraffickingProject.com.
TheStopTraffickingProject.com. And now, how can people go out there and find you and the resources that you have, and kind of talk us through what kind of resources you do have?
I'd like for,
Sure.
I'd like for Dane. Is there a way, like when we're airing this podcast, that we can have a link while people are watching it?
Absolutely, yeah. We'll make sure all of Russ's stuff is linked in the video so that they.
And honestly, if you just link to it from our website, like we don't do much printed material, everything's from our website. So from our website, you can get our app. You can connect with us on our social media. It'll even connect parents who need it to the Take It Down if they've got pictures of their kids on there. We've got some videos on there. We've got some resources on there for parents. So it's just kind of a generic, come all site. On the app, there's a handful of additional videos that parents can use that can maybe show a kid, like we've got a video on there, 1 minute and 7 seconds about loneliness. Okay, feel lonely. Show it to your kid. Have a conversation with them about that. If you ever feel lonely, please know I'm that trusted adult in your life that you need to come talk to, rather than going into your screen space and telling people you're lonely, because that's not a good thing to do. Have the conversation with your kids. We are not solving this problem for anybody. What we're doing is we're starting the conversation. And this is what's amazing to me, guys. The lights come on in people's eyes, adults and students, to understand this is actually a thing. If I will step up and be a hero in this space, as an adult or a student, we literally can make a difference. And that's what's so encouraging to me, because the strategy we've developed is having immediate impact. At the end of every presentation we do, every school assembly, we see immediate impact when they come talk to us, whether it's a disclosure, whatever it is. The long-term influence is 100% effective when the adults in whatever community we go to own it and continue following up with their kids. And we are seeing that in communities everywhere that we go.
So the symptom is loneliness, isolation, and
Depression.
And the goal of the trafficker is exploitation of vulnerability.
Yep.
Those are the two things that I've heard you say over and over.
So what we want to do, so as adults, we identify those three words: exploitation of vulnerability. We're looking for the vulnerability in the kid. Identify it, deal with it before it can be exploited, especially online. The trafficker, the pimp, the predator, the pervert, they're looking for vulnerabilities to exploit.
Right.
Same
We're
three
looking
words.
for we're
Same
looking
three
for
words.
The vulnerability too. We're looking for it for a different reason, though.
100%. And if we can boil that down to that simplicity, and then you take that one family at a time, one community at a time, one church at a time, one school at a time, one community at a time, guess what? We're going to make a difference.
And those four things, so it's really loneliness, isolation, depression, and pornography.
100%.
Pornography, you're saying 100%.
Because what then plays out is the pornography is driving the vast majority of the cyberbullying online, because the naked pictures, it's leading kids to want to die by suicide. And what happens is when it's online, they get into a controlling relationship that controls every aspect of their life. And the kids don't know it.
How would you advise a parent who, like the second grade kid, he comes in, I got an issue online. My knee-jerk reaction is to pick up that damn controller and keep playing along until I can go get my hands on this person.
Yeah, so we highly recommend that you don't do that. So we tell people, I get the heart on that. So we tell people this: unless you are law enforcement, don't pretend like you are law enforcement, because as what happens, you will probably end up in jail. That's what happens. So the problem is this: is we work within a broken system. But within that situation, so the parent contacted the school. School had gone through the training. So school now has idea how to properly process things. School knows what law enforcement to contact to pass it off. So that's where within even the broken system, we still have to operate within that, especially within law enforcement. Now, a whole nother rabbit trail we can chase, that if they track that guy's IP address down and stuff, is the local prosecutor actually going to prosecute it? That's different in every community.
So he may.
That's where your votes matter.
Oh my gosh. I'm speechless. So let me ask you this question. So you mean to tell me that the penalties for seeking minor sex partners, it varies from community to community?
So there's federal laws, there's federal laws and there's state laws, and they're very stringent. It's getting to that point though, because here's you have to understand is there are so many people engaging in these activities online. It's very easy. It's a high dollar business. Okay, so the incentive is there for people, right? Within trafficking, within child porn, all this stuff. The incentives to not do it, the penalties are there. They exist. The laws exist. It's getting it to that point to actually being able to build the case. One of the challenges, you guys, especially with actual victims of child sex trafficking, is a lot of times those don't officially show up as child sex trafficking charges, because do you really want to put a kid on the witness stand who is 10 years old? It's taken 4 years to get the case to this point. The kid's now 14. He or she is in a place of healing and wholeness. Do you really want to put that kid on the stand and rip those scabs open? Or we can go after the guy for child porn, and we don't have to have so there's so many nuances to that,
and as a parent,
so many ways to play that. So a lot of times people will push back at me and go, there's no problem with sex trafficking. I looked up the records. There's hardly ever any, prosecutions made for sex trafficking. Well, there are reasons for that. And a lot of times it comes down to a compassionate end of a prosecutor to go, I just literally cannot, as a human, put that kid on the stand.
Well, and as a parent, you got to advocate for your child and look out for the mental well-being of the child.
There's so many nuances to this.
That's something that
Yeah, for sure.
some kids don't ever get over.
Yep.
Some kids don't get past it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there is hope if we as adults will own this and pay attention to what our kids are doing and don't be afraid of technology, but engage with it at appropriate ages and do it together.
One more question.
Yep.
So the name of the organization that you
Our organization?
Yes.
We're the Stop Trafficking Project.
Stop track. Now there's another one called Exodus Cry.
Mhm.
And now
They operate out of California. Amazing people.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Why did I think that they operated out here?
They used to be here.
They did.
Several years ago, they moved out of Kansas City and went back to California.
Went back to California.
And they are doing amazing exposés into the whole depravity of the porn industry and stuff like that. So,
Okay.
unbelievable things they're doing there.
What
Space.
does your organization, well, here, at the end of the day, you just said no one is ever going to come to you and admit that they're seeking underage sex. So how do you change the hearts of men?
Yeah. So that takes one guy talking to another guy. It's honestly going to take a dad talking to his teen or tween son to raise him up. And if a dad's got an issue with this, dad better be open and authentic to have a real conversation with kids, because kids can tell when you're blowing smoke at them.
So you can't stop it with the people.
This is going to be a generational thing.
It's going to have to progressively get better.
100%. And that's one of the messages we give to kids in schools. Listen, your generation is either going to make this better or worse. I'm appealing to the hero in you to make it better. This is a justice generation. All right? This is a justice generation. Like, they identify, but we don't agree with that. We want to stand for people's rights. Like, they're ready to be against everything, right? That they feel it's going to harm somebody. So I want them against trafficking. And then unpack for them how it actually starts, how it actually works. And when you tell them that, you know what, your online behavior could potentially make this better or worse, you choose. So William Wilberforce, famous abolitionist, he had that famous statement he made. He said, you can choose to look the other way, but you can never again say that you did not know. I use that statement with kids, middle school and high school. You can choose to look the other way. Everything I've told you in this assembly today about your life online, how you can be a hero, you can choose to look the other way. I respect that. But you can never say again that you did not know. In this context, they can never say they did not know the role that their life online plays in keeping themselves and their friends safer. And that's where I absolutely am honored and humbled to stand in front of students and see the lights come on and see an immediate impact where they make change with long-term influence.
Yeah, man, I got nothing over here. I
always do a real good job being able to hold a conversation, and I am struggling right now.
Yeah, I mean,
God.
I think the gravity of the entire thing is.
So here's how people can help. So if they want, here's how they can help. They want to do something. So do what we've talked about. Okay, pay attention to your kid. Beyond that, open doors for us in your communities. Open doors. If you're a key influencer with a church or school, tell them about us as an organization. We'll come in. We will unpack these things to get more intensity locally within the community to go, hey, you guys can actually step up, and especially getting into schools is the key. We never cold call a school. Every single school we've gotten into, 115,000 plus and counting students that we've talked to throughout the state, no, they don't call us. An adult who has the heart and is a key influencer within a school speaks to someone within the school and says, hey, there's this organization doing this, helping kids be safer in their online space. That's how we've gotten into every single school we've gotten into. Then what happens is, listen, that school where they had the guy arrested in $1.3 million bond the day after the school assembly, the next 18 months, I was in all those communities out there.
Yeah.
Guess what? That guy, his reach wasn't just that one little small rural community. It was reaching everywhere. And that's really how this works. And that's where we're doing it together. So I hate to do this to you guys, but I was supposed to be back in Shawnee.
You know what?
2 o'clock.
Here, thank
and
you.
I'm not gonna actually be back in Shawnee by 2 o'clock. I'm just realizing.
You
I'm
know
having
what?
fun. I'm having fun talking to you
I
guys.
apologize.
I'm kind of just getting warmed up.
No,
So
Man.
I apologize.
I'm passionate about this.
Is there anything else a message you would like to convey to the audience? and a question that we didn't ask, that to help facilitate your responses, or anything else that you would like to?
I just literally want people to not be angry at students and don't be like beating up technology, but to have honest, authentic conversations, understanding that technology itself is not the enemy, but it is definitely being used against our kids.
Educate yourself, run in wisdom.
We
don't
absolutely
run in
have
fear.
to. Absolutely have to.
Russ, thank you very much.
Yes,
Of course, guys.
Russ,
I
and
appreciate
I think that maybe
I need a nap.
maybe we could have you on, again, because I feel like there's just so much that he has to offer.
Well, and I think it's going to perpetually evolve what you're doing.
For sure.
You
Yeah.
know,
And it's good to keep people updated on what to look for.
Yeah.
for
you
sure.
know, and this is a good platform to just.
That's really how we built this nonprofit, just been kind of line upon line, nothing dramatic, just kind of slow, steady plodding around, just line upon line, line upon line.
Yeah.
It's been rewarding to see.
Thank you very much for your time.
Awesome.
Sure,
Thank
guys.
you,
I
Russ.
appreciate it.
All right.